The Academy transport ship was filled with noise, voices, and restless energy. Young students from many worlds crowded the aisles, searching for their assigned places. The hum of the engines echoed softly through the metal walls, and the overhead lights shone bright against polished panels. It was supposed to be an exciting journey, the beginning of training for a new generation of explorers and scientists. Yet in the middle row, one seat remained untouched. Around it, students kept glancing and whispering to one another, shaking their heads before moving away. The seat was beside a girl who sat stiffly, her hands folded tight on her lap. She was not human. Her skin held a pale green shade with faint silver lines that glimmered like the veins of a leaf. Her dark eyes stayed fixed on the floor. Her name was Sira. She came from a small colony far away, a place humans had only visited twice. She had been chosen for the Academy because of her intelligence and her skill with star maps. Yet none of that seemed to matter here. What the others noticed was the air around her. Sira carried a scent that followed her wherever she went. It was not dangerous, it was not poison, but it was strong. To most of the other students, it was unpleasant, sharp like iron and bitter like spoiled fruit. As soon as they stepped near her, their noses wrinkled and their bodies turned aside. The closer they sat, the harder it was for them to ignore, so her corner of the ship stayed empty. Sira tried to pretend she did not care. She kept her face calm, though inside her chest felt heavy. The Academy had promised unity between worlds. The instructors had spoken about learning together, sharing knowledge, and becoming stronger as one. But here she was, surrounded by people who would rather stand than take the open seat at her side. She remembered her family's words before she left home. Be strong, Sira. They may not understand at first, but one day they will see the value of your spirit. She repeated those words in her mind like a shield. Still, the ache of being avoided pressed harder than she had expected. The ship's doors opened once more and a few late arrivals stepped in. Among them was a young human. His hair was short and dark and his uniform looked a little loose on his tall frame. He carried himself with quiet ease, scanning the crowded rows for a place to sit. His name, written on the tag over his chest, was Aaron. Students shifted quickly, calling out to him, pointing at other empty spots near them. They wanted him away from Sira's corner. They thought he would notice the scent, just like all the rest. But Aaron's eyes fell on the lonely seat beside the alien girl. Without hesitation, he moved down the row. The whispers rose. "Is he serious?" someone muttered. Another student shook his head and covered his mouth with his sleeve as if bracing for the smell. Sira lifted her eyes for the first time, confused. She expected him to stop short once he grew close. Yet Aaron slid into the seat beside her as if it were the most natural choice in the world. He set his pack down, leaned back, and let out a calm breath. The scent reached him as it reached everyone. It was strong and distinct, but Aaron's expression did not twist with discomfort. Instead, his eyes softened and a small smile touched his face. Sira stared at him, unable to hide her surprise. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again, unsure. No one had ever chosen to sit beside her before. The other students looked on in disbelief. Some shook their heads. A few snickered. But Aaron ignored them. He seemed lost in thought, as if the air around Sira carried him somewhere far away. The ship's engines roared louder as it prepared to lift off. Announcements rang from the speakers, guiding the students to fasten their belts. Sira adjusted hers silently, still watching the human at her side. For the first time since she had boarded, the empty seat was no longer empty. She felt the faintest shift inside herself. A spark of hope mixed with confusion. She wondered what kind of person would sit beside her without fear, without judgment. The journey was just beginning, but Sira sensed that her life at the Academy would not unfold the way she had imagined. The human's choice had already changed something, and though she did not yet understand why, she wanted to know what he had seen in her presence that no one else had. The transport ship sailed smoothly through the dark stretch of space. Inside the cabin, students slowly settled into their seats. Some spoke in hushed tones. Some tapped on their tablets, while others simply stared out of the wide glass panels at the stars. Yet even with all the distractions around them, many eyes kept drifting toward the same spot. Aaron sat beside Sira without hesitation. It was a simple act to him, but to everyone else it seemed strange. The alien girl's scent lingered in the air, sharp and heavy. Students around them shifted in their chairs, muttering to one another. "Why did he sit there?" one whispered. He will regret it, another said. A few covered their noses with sleeves, trying to avoid the drifting trace that reached them. Sira noticed every reaction. Her hands stayed clenched together and her gaze dropped again. She wanted to shrink into herself, to disappear from the sight of others. She had hoped the human would realize his mistake and move away like the rest. But he did not. Aaron leaned back in his seat as if it were the most comfortable place on the ship. The engines hummed and the floor vibrated lightly beneath their feet. A soft glow filled the cabin from the ceiling lamps. Aaron looked calm, his eyes wandering to the glass panels where distant stars twinkled. He took in the air with an easy breath and his lips curved in a small smile. To him, the scent was not sharp or bitter. It was familiar. It reminded him of his home on Earth, the fields beyond his small town where the wind carried the smell of wild grass and wet soil after rain. The memory warmed his chest. For a moment, he was not in a crowded ship filled with strangers. He was standing in the open, barefoot in the meadow, the sky above him stretching endless and blue. Sira finally gathered the courage to speak. Her voice was low, almost uncertain. "You are not bothered." Aaron turned his head toward her. His eyes were steady, kind. "Bothered by what?" he asked gently. She hesitated. "The scent. Everyone avoids me because of it." Aaron's smile widened slightly, not in mockery but in reassurance. "It reminds me of home," he said. "It feels like rain on the ground after a storm. It is not bad, it is peaceful." The words stunned Sira. No one had ever spoken of her presence in such a way. Most either ignored her or whispered insults when they thought she could not hear. She blinked, unsure of how to respond. "You are not lying?" she asked, her voice faint. "I do not lie about simple things," Aaron replied. He rested his arms against the seat and glanced back at the stars. "Besides, I chose this seat. If it were unpleasant to me, I would have sat elsewhere." The sound of murmurs grew louder behind them. Students leaned closer to one another, trading comments and disbelieving shakes of their heads. Some smirked, others frowned. They could not understand why a human would willingly sit near the alien girl. Sira felt the weight of their judgment pressing down. A part of her wanted to tell Iran to leave, to protect him from the mocking eyes of their peers. But another part of her held on to his words, clinging to the rare kindness he had shown. For years she had lived with the burden of her scent. Her own people never noticed it, for it was natural among them. But once she entered stations shared with other races, she had learned quickly how alone it made her. She had convinced herself to endure. Yet now here was someone who did not simply endure it, but accepted it. "Why are you not afraid of being mocked by the others?" she asked at last. Aaron shrugged lightly. "Their opinion is theirs. It does not change my choice. I sit where I wish. I speak with whom I wish. If they laugh, let them laugh." The simplicity of his answer surprised her. She had thought acceptance would come only after long explanations, long battles to prove herself. But this human dismissed the problem as if it were no problem at all. The ship jolted slightly as it shifted course. Students reached for their belts, fastening them tightly as the announcement rang overhead. Sira followed the motion, securing her strap. Aaron did the same, calm and steady. For a moment silence grew between them. Yet it was not heavy silence. It was quiet comfort, as if no words were needed. Sira studied him from the corner of her eyes. His posture was relaxed, his breathing even. She noticed the faint curve of his mouth, the way his gaze softened whenever he looked at the stars. She wondered what memories rested behind that calm smile. Aaron finally turned his head back toward her. "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated, then answered. "Sira." "Nice to meet you, Sira," Aaron said with ease. "I am Aaron." The name sounded steady to her ears, like the first solid step on unfamiliar ground. She repeated it softly, almost testing how it felt to speak it. "Aaron." The ship's engines roared louder, signaling the start of their long journey. Students shifted uneasily, still whispering behind them. But in that small corner of the cabin, two strangers shared the first thread of a connection. For Sira, the human's choice carried weight she could not yet measure. For Aaron, it was nothing more than a simple decision to sit beside someone left alone. Yet that choice had already begun to stir change in both of them. Quiet but certain, like the first ripple across still water. The transport ship moved steadily through space, its engines humming a constant tune that soon faded into the background. Most of the students had grown quiet, some drifting into sleep, others staring at their tablets. Yet for Aaron, the moment felt strangely peaceful. He sat beside Sira without regret, breathing in the air that others found unbearable. The scent wrapped around him like an invisible thread. To most it was sharp and unpleasant. To him it opened a door in his memory. He closed his eyes briefly, letting the picture rise in his mind. He was back on Earth years earlier, standing in the fields near his home. The grass stretched tall and green, the sky above painted with heavy clouds. After rain, the soil carried a strong smell, earthy and raw. The breeze moved across the land, carrying the freshness of water mixed with the sharpness of iron-rich ground. He remembered running through that field as a child, his bare feet splashing against puddles, his laughter carried by the wind. That was the scent that clung to Sira, the scent that made others recoil. To Aaron, it was home. He opened his eyes again, and the ship's ceiling replaced the cloudy sky. But the warmth of the memory lingered. His lips curved in a quiet smile. Sira noticed it. She had been stealing cautious glances at him since their short exchange, still unsure of his presence. Finally, she asked in a soft voice, "Why do you smile like that?" Aaron turned his head toward her. "It reminds me of a place I miss," he said simply. Sira tilted her head, curious. "A place on your world, yes," he replied. "A place where the land breathes the same scent you carry. Everyone else thinks it is harsh, but to me it feels like my childhood." Her dark eyes widened slightly. She had expected tolerance at best, but not this, not fondness. "So when you smell it, you feel happy?" "I feel calm," Aaron answered. "Like I am back in a safe place even when I am far away." For a moment, Sira said nothing. The words settled deep within her, brushing against the ache she carried. All her life outside her home, she had felt judged for something beyond her control. Yet here was someone who found comfort in what others rejected. Her fingers loosened slightly from their tight fold. She dared to ask, "Do you not worry that others will think you strange for saying this?" Aaron shrugged, a hint of amusement in his tone. "I have never cared much for whispers. People always talk. What matters is what we choose." His answer was light, but to Sira it carried weight. She had tried so hard to bend herself around the opinions of others, hiding in silence, waiting for acceptance. Aaron's simple confidence felt foreign, yet freeing. The cabin lights dimmed as the ship switched into long travel mode. A soft glow remained along the floor, guiding those who might rise. Students shifted in their seats, preparing for the long hours ahead. Some threw curious glances toward Sira and Aaron, their expressions mixed with disbelief and scorn. Sira caught those looks and felt a familiar sting. But when she turned back, Aaron was already leaning comfortably in his seat, his eyes half closed, unbothered by the world around him. His calmness spread toward her like ripples from a stone in water. For the first time, the weight on her chest eased just a little. The silence between them grew, yet it was not heavy. It was steady, like the hum of the ship itself. Sira found herself breathing more easily. After a while, Aaron spoke again, his voice quiet, almost thoughtful. "Do your people notice the scent the way others do?" She shook her head. "No, to us it is natural. We do not smell it at all. Only outsiders notice, and they never let us forget." Aaron considered this. "Then maybe that is why it feels stronger to me. I grew up in a place where the earth carried the same kind of smell. Most humans do not live near such soil. For them it is unusual. For me it is familiar." Sira studied his face, the way he spoke without hesitation. She wondered how a simple human could see what so many others had missed. The stars outside glimmered against the black sky, and the ship's path cut straight through them. She thought of the journey ahead, of the academy where she would be tested alongside hundreds of others. Fear always lingered in her mind that she would be left alone again, just as she was here. But now, with Aaron beside her, that fear loosened its grip. "You are different," she said softly, almost more to herself than to him. Aaron opened one eye, smiling faintly. Different is not always bad. The words lingered between them, simple yet powerful. The hum of the engines carried on, a steady heartbeat of the ship. Around them, students whispered, laughed, and frowned. Yet in that corner, beside the once empty seat, something new had begun to take root. A memory stirred for Aaron. A flicker of hope stirred for Sira. And together they sat quietly, bound not by silence but by understanding. The journey had only just begun, but for both of them, it already felt like the start of something that mattered. The long journey through space stretched on. The lights inside the transport ship had dimmed to a soft glow, and the students had settled into quiet clusters. Some whispered in pairs, others played small games on their tablets, and a few tried to sleep despite the constant vibration of the engines. Sira sat very still in her corner, aware as always of the air around her. Even here, far from home, her scent clung to her like a mark she could never escape. The other students had given her space, making her seat feel like a small island in a restless sea. But this time she was not alone. Aaron remained at her side, calm and steady, as though his place had always been there. She kept glancing at him, unsure how to begin. He seemed comfortable, leaning back against his seat, eyes half closed as if enjoying the gentle hum of the ship. His ease unsettled her, not because it was unwelcome, but because it was new. No one had ever shown such calmness near her. Finally, she gathered the courage to speak. "Why did you choose to sit here?" she asked quietly. Aaron opened his eyes, turning his head toward her. His gaze was clear, his expression calm. "Because it was open," he replied. "And because I wanted to." Her brows drew together. "You knew why it was empty. You must have seen how the others avoided it." "Yes," Aaron said simply. "I saw, but their choice is not mine." The answer surprised her with its simplicity. She had expected a long explanation, perhaps an excuse, but he spoke as though it was nothing more than the truth. She lowered her eyes, her voice soft. "You do not feel what they feel. You do not find it difficult to stay near me." Aaron shook his head. "Not at all. I told you already. It reminds me of home." His words carried warmth that unsettled her even more. "Why does something others hate remind you of home?" she asked, curiosity breaking through her doubt. Aaron's smile was faint, but his eyes grew distant as though he looked beyond the ship. "When I was young, I lived in a place filled with fields. After a storm, the ground smelled sharp, almost metallic. Most people disliked it, but to me it was a promise that the land was alive. It told me I belonged there. When I breathe the air near you, I feel the same. It makes me remember who I am." Sira's chest tightened at his words. She had always been treated as if her scent was a curse, yet here a human spoke of it as if it were a gift. "You speak as if it comforts you," she said slowly. "It does," Aaron replied. "It comforts me more than the laughter of those who whisper about us. Let them laugh if they wish. I will not move." Sira turned her gaze toward the other students. Many still watched with curiosity, some with disapproval, others with mocking smiles. The weight of their eyes pressed against her, yet Aaron's steady presence shielded her more than she expected. "They will mock you," she warned. "They may call you strange." Aaron's lips curved into a small grin. "Then let them. A person is not made by whispers. A person is made by what he chooses to stand by." The words sank deep into her heart. She had been running from whispers all her life. She had hidden behind silence, hoping invisibility would spare her from rejection. Yet here sat someone who faced it without fear, and his strength seemed to spread toward her. Sira's fingers loosened, no longer clenched tight in her lap. She felt a strange pull to speak more, to share what she usually kept buried. "My people never notice it," she admitted. "Among them, the air is always the same. Only when I left home did I realize how others see me. Since then, I have carried their stares like a shadow." Aaron listened, his expression serious. "Then it is not your burden," he said. "It is theirs. They cannot see beyond what they dislike. That is their weakness, not yours." Her eyes lifted to meet his. No one had ever said such words to her before. For the first time, the shadow felt a little lighter. The hum of the ship filled the silence that followed, steady and calm. Sira let the quiet linger, but it was no longer heavy. It felt like space to breathe. After a while, Aaron asked gently, "Why did you join the academy?" She thought for a moment before answering. "Because I know the stars better than I know people. When I look at the maps, I see paths others cannot. My teachers told me the academy needed that skill. I thought perhaps here among many worlds I would find belonging." Her voice softened. "But I was wrong. I am still a part." Aaron leaned back, his tone firm but calm. "You are not a part to me. And if you know the stars better than anyone, then you already carry more worth than all their whispers combined." Her throat tightened, and she turned her face slightly to hide the emotion in her eyes. For so long, she had prepared herself to be alone. Yet here was someone who looked past what others rejected. Someone who saw her worth without hesitation. The engines hummed. The lights glowed faintly, and the ship pressed forward into the endless stretch of stars. Around them, whispers continued, but their meaning faded. In that small corner, two voices had crossed a barrier, and the first true conversation between human and alien had begun. For Sierra, it was more than words. It was the first time she felt seen not as a burden but as herself. And for Aaron, it was simple truth. He had chosen the seat, and he had no wish to move. The transport ship finally reached the Academy station, a great ring of silver that glimmered against the dark sky. Lights shone along its surface like 1,000 tiny suns, guiding the incoming ships into the wide hangars. For many students, it was the most beautiful sight they had ever seen. Excitement buzzed in the air as they prepared to step into their new life. Yet as the group filed out of the transport, the whispers did not fade. They followed Aaron and Sierra like shadows. "Why does he sit with her?" one student muttered. "He must enjoy that strange smell," another said with a laugh. "Humans are odd," a third added, shaking his head. The words were not loud, but they carried easily in the busy corridors. Aaron ignored them, walking steadily with his pack over his shoulder. He did not glance back, nor did he slow his pace. To him, the voices were nothing more than noise. Sierra, however, felt each word like a small cut. She had endured stares all her life, but this was different. Now the ridicule touched Aaron too, simply because he chose to sit beside her. Guilt pressed against her heart. As they reached the registration hall, Sierra whispered, "You should not walk near me. They will mock you more." Aaron turned his head, his expression calm. "Let them mock," he said. "I choose where I walk. I choose who I walk with." The words steadied her for a moment, yet the guilt did not fully leave. She feared the day when his patience might run thin, when the weight of other voices might wear him down. The hall was filled with students from many worlds. Names were recorded, dorm assignments given, and groups were formed for the first orientation. Aaron and Sierra were placed in the same group along with 8 others. The instructor, a tall being with golden skin and a voice like thunder, welcomed them. "At this academy, you will learn not only skills of the mind but strength of spirit. You will face trials together, and you will succeed only as a team." The words were noble, but reality was harsher. As soon as the instructor left, the group began to murmur among themselves. Most students avoided looking at Sierra directly, though their eyes kept drifting toward her. 2 students whispered behind raised hands, pointing toward Aaron. Another pair exchanged amused glances. Finally, one of them spoke aloud. A tall boy with scaled skin smirked and said, "Strange choice, human. You sit with her even though no one else will." Aaron looked at him without flinching. "She is my teammate." "That is reason enough," the boy chuckled. "Teammate, yes. But when her scent fills the room, you may regret it. Do not expect us to stand close." Sierra felt her face grow warm. She wanted to vanish into the floor. Before she could speak, Aaron answered firmly, "If you cannot stand close, that is your weakness, not hers." The sharp reply drew a few gasps. The scaled boy sneered, but he said no more. Still, the tension in the group thickened. During the first orientation, the groups were shown their dorm wings and shared training halls. Sierra walked quietly, keeping her head low. She could feel the distance forming already. The others spoke to one another, but not to her. They avoided walking near her, leaving a small gap wherever she stood. Aaron, however, remained by her side. His steady presence was both comfort and burden. Comfort, because she was not fully alone. Burden, because she feared she was dragging him into the same isolation that surrounded her. That evening, as they settled into their dorms, Sierra stood by the window of her small room. The stars stretched wide beyond the glass, endless and cold. She thought of her family's words before she left home. They may not understand at first, but one day they will. She wondered if that day would ever come. A soft knock broke her thoughts. Aaron stood at the door. "You should rest," he said. "Tomorrow will be full of trials." She hesitated before speaking. "You do not have to defend me, Aaron. You will only make enemies for yourself." He stepped inside, leaning lightly against the wall. "If they choose to dislike me for sitting beside someone, then their judgment is not worth my concern." Sierra lowered her gaze. "I do not want you to suffer because of me." Aaron's voice was steady. "Suffering is pretending to be someone you are not. I will not pretend, and neither should you." His words struck deep, stirring something she had long buried. She looked at him with quiet wonder. His calmness was not arrogance, nor was it empty courage. It was simple truth, spoken without fear. The shadows of prejudice still lingered in the academy halls. Whispers would continue and stares would follow. But in that moment, Sierra felt a shift inside herself. Perhaps she did not have to carry the weight alone. Perhaps with Aran at her side, the shadows would lose their strength. As night fell over the academy, Sierra lay on her narrow bed, her thoughts restless but warmer than before. For the first time since leaving home, she felt the faint spark of belonging. It was small, fragile, and uncertain, but it was real. And though the path ahead would be difficult, she held on to that spark. Because one human had chosen to stand beside her no matter what the others said, the academy wasted no time. On the second day, the new students were called to the training wing. The halls echoed with heavy footsteps and low voices as the groups gathered. Excitement mixed with nervousness filled the air. Instructors stood at the front, tall and firm, their faces unreadable. "Your first trial begins today," one instructor announced. His voice rolled through the room like thunder. "It is a test of courage, not skill. You will face a simulated danger. You will succeed only if you work together." The groups exchanged uneasy glances. Some whispered quick plans, others stood silently. Sierra's group followed the scaled boy who had mocked her earlier. He smirked with confidence, declaring that he would lead. Most of the group nodded, eager to follow someone bold. Only Aaron stayed quiet, his eyes sharp and watchful. They were led into a wide chamber with steel walls. The doors sealed shut behind them, and a warning light flashed across the ceiling. A voice echoed from the speakers. "Simulation begins. Reactor breach detected. Containment required." Panels opened in the walls, releasing clouds of thick gas. The air grew heavy and difficult to breathe. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and the floor vibrated as if the chamber itself were in danger. Students coughed and covered their mouths. The scaled boy shouted orders, telling the others to hold back until the gas cleared. But the voice from the speakers was firm. "Delay will cause total failure. Reactor core unstable." Panic spread through the group. No one dared step into the gas-filled section. The sharp air stung their eyes and burned their throats. Sierra stood frozen, her heart racing. Yet deep inside, she knew something others did not. Her body was not harmed by such air. Her people had lived for centuries on worlds with heavy, sharp atmospheres. To her, the gas was no threat. She turned to Aaron. His eyes met hers, calm and steady. "You can walk in there, can't you?" he asked quietly. She nodded slowly. "Yes, but I cannot fix the machines alone." Aaron placed a hand on her shoulder, firm and reassuring. "Then we go together." The others stared in shock as Sierra stepped forward into the thick gas, her movement steady while they coughed behind her. Aaron followed, pulling his collar up against his mouth, forcing each breath. His eyes watered, but he stayed close to her side. At the center of the chamber, glowing panels blinked red around a simulated reactor. Sparks flew from loose cables and warning alarms screamed louder. Sierra moved quickly, her hands sure and steady as she adjusted the controls. Aaron knelt beside her, using the tools from the emergency kit. His vision blurred from the gas, but he focused on her calm voice guiding him. "Turn that valve," she instructed. He obeyed, forcing it shut. "Hold the panel steady." He braced it while she reconnected the lines. Together they worked, their movements swift and sure. While others watched helplessly from the edge, human and alien fought against the failing system. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. Finally, the alarm stopped. The red lights shifted to green. The gas vents closed and the air slowly cleared. The voice from the speakers announced, "Containment restored. Simulation complete." The doors opened and the group stumbled out. Some students gasped for fresh air, others wiped their eyes. The scaled boy glared, anger burning in his eyes, but he said nothing. He had done nothing while the human and alien saved them all. Instructors stood waiting, their expressions sharp but approving. "The trial has ended," one declared. His gaze moved over the group before resting on Sierra and Aaron. Two students showed courage where others faltered. "Remember this. In true danger, hesitation brings failure. Action brings survival." The group fell silent. Whispers soon spread, but they were not like before. Now the voices carried awe, curiosity, and respect. Sierra walked quietly beside Aaron as they left the chamber. Her heart pounded with pride and disbelief. For the first time, she had shown her strength before others. And she had not stood alone. Aaron's face was pale from the gas, but his smile was steady. "You did well," he said softly. So did you, she replied. You could have stayed safe, but you came with me. His eyes held hers. You should not have to stand alone, not here. Not ever. The words settled deep within her. For years she had felt like an outcast, marked by something she could not change. But now, in the eyes of her peers, she was more than the girl with the unwanted scent. She was the one who had stepped into danger and brought safety to them all. And at her side was the human who had chosen her from the beginning. The shadows of prejudice had not vanished, but something had shifted. Respect had taken root where scorn had once been. The path ahead would still be difficult, but Sira felt a strength she had never known before. She had faced danger. She had overcome it. And she had done it with Aaron beside her. The academy halls were alive with voices the next morning. Word of the trial had already spread beyond their group. Students from other teams whispered as Sira passed, their eyes following her not with disgust but with curiosity. Some still wrinkled their noses, but many looked at her with something new in their gaze. Respect. For Sira, it felt strange and almost unreal. Only days before she had walked these halls as an outcast, avoided by every step around her. Now whispers carried not scorn but admiration. She had stood in the gas chamber when no one else dared, and she had saved them all with Aaron's help. Still she kept her head low, unsure how to accept this change. She did not trust it fully. Respect could fade as quickly as it came. But when she glanced beside her and saw Aaron walking calmly at her side, her heart steadied. He had never wavered, not once. Their group met again in the training yard later that day. The scaled boy who had once mocked Sira stood awkwardly at the edge. He no longer smirked. Instead, he kept his eyes down, unwilling to meet hers. Other members of the group greeted Aaron and Sira with hesitant nods, some even murmuring thanks. The instructor arrived, his golden skin catching the light. His voice carried across the yard. The trial revealed much. Fear can paralyze, but courage breaks through. Remember what you witnessed. It is not strength of body alone that wins survival, but strength of heart. His eyes rested on Sira and Aaron for a long moment before he continued with instructions. The group began drills, running across the field and working through tasks. For the first time, no one pulled away from Sira. They still kept a small distance, but it was no longer the gap of disgust. It was the space of caution mixed with reluctant respect. During a short break, Sira sat at the edge of the yard. She closed her eyes, letting the sun's warmth soak into her skin. The scent that always clung to her drifted into the air, but no one moved away. That simple change struck her deeply. Aaron joined her, dropping down onto the grass with ease. He stretched his arms behind him and leaned back, breathing calmly. They look at you differently now, he said. Sira opened her eyes, studying the faces around them. For now, she answered softly. But change can be fragile. Aaron turned his head toward her, his voice steady. Then let it grow stronger. Yesterday they saw what you can do. Today they will see again, and tomorrow more. Step by step their eyes will change. His words filled her with quiet hope. You speak as if it is simple, he smiled. Simple does not mean easy, but it begins with one choice. You already made that choice when you walked into the chamber. Sira lowered her gaze. I would not have stepped forward if you had not stood with me. You would have, Aaron said firmly. I only gave you a reason to believe you were not alone. The strength was already yours. Her chest tightened, and for a moment she could not speak. His words reminded her of her family's encouragement before she left home. Yet hearing them here from someone who had seen her struggle and still stood beside her gave them a deeper weight. Later that evening, the students gathered in the common hall. The large space buzzed with voices, laughter, and the clatter of trays as food was served. Sira hesitated at the doorway, old habits urging her to step aside and wait for the crowd to pass. But Aaron walked straight in, holding his tray with calm confidence. He did not look back, yet she followed. As they moved through the hall, something unexpected happened. A student at one of the tables shifted over, creating space. Another gave a short nod of acknowledgement. A third even spoke. Well done in the trial. Sira paused, unsure how to react. Her instinct told her to retreat, but Aaron simply sat down at the offered space. He glanced up at her, waiting. Slowly, with a quiet breath, she joined him. The meal passed in steady rhythm. The whispers still lingered, but they no longer carried only mockery. Respect had mixed with them, reshaping the sound. For the first time in her memory, Sira ate in the company of others without being pushed aside. As night settled over the academy, Sira and Aaron walked together along the outer ring. The stars stretched wide through the viewing panels, endless and bright. She slowed her pace, her voice soft. When I left home, I thought I would always be alone here. I thought no one would look beyond what sets me apart. But now, she paused, searching for the right words. Now I see that one person's choice can change everything. Aaron's gaze lingered on the stars, his tone calm. That is the truth of life. One choice can shift the path of many. You chose to act in the trial. I chose to sit beside you. Together, those choices changed more than whispers. They changed the way others see. Sira looked at him with quiet gratitude. Her heart no longer felt weighed down. The scent that had marked her as an outcast was still there, but it no longer felt like a curse. It was a part of her, and now she knew it could carry meaning beyond rejection. The academy still held challenges. More trials would come, more tests, more judgments, but she no longer feared them in the same way. She had found a friend who stood without wavering, and through him she had found her own strength. Under the endless stars, Sira felt something she had long searched for, belonging. And though many did not yet understand, one human had seen her for who she was. That was enough to begin a new chapter not only for her, but for everyone who would one day hear the story of the alien girl and the human who chose to sit beside her.